What is going on, YouTube friends and family? It's Guy with Beard, Guns, and Gear. Kind of got to thinking, and a lot of people have been asking me like what I bring with me when I go big game hunting. And it's really difficult to say if my needs are going to sort to suit your needs, or how much is actually done beforehand. Like, I'm not going to get up in the morning and go, hey, I think I'm going to go moose hunting today, and go out. Sure, you can try that, but your chances of being successful at that are not very good. So there's a lot of preparation that goes in, and any kind of big game hunting, a lot of preparation that goes in beforehand. Depending on the land that you're going to hunt, and I'm going to talk mostly about moose hunting because that's what I just came from. And that type of moose hunting, there's two different ways to do it. Basically, you can sit close to usually a mineral block and try and call the bulls towards you. And that's what we mostly focus on. That's what we found to be mostly productive, because also we hunt in a ZEC in northern Quebec, and you are constrained by the amount of hunting territory you have. So you basically pay, you get to choose a hunting territory if there's one available. You pin it, that's your spot. You make your platform, you put your blocks out, and you hunt. You hope that you're within an area where they traffic enough so that they'll notice your salt block, mineral block is there, and that becomes a part of their typical travel. So what do I do before? Like, I'm talking about in spring, you know, I want to reactivate my mineral block, that's all good. But some of the things that I like to do as well, obviously, is check for any signs of new trails that are opening up in my area. But I'm also going to put up a couple of cameras where I think I'm going to catch the most action. At least one, preferably two, depending on how many different openings. So before hunting season even goes, I like to go put up the cameras, and I go probably whenever I go up there, which is usually about every 2 weeks in the summer. I'll go pull the cards out, check the photos, and see what's traveling through there. The other thing I like to do in my area is I like to take one of these guys, and if you don't have one, and if you hunt crossbow or otherwise, you should definitely get one of these. That's it's just a range finder, okay? These ones here, they're pretty cheap now. I mean, inexpensive. They're about 300 bucks or so, depending on the number of features that are on it. This one here gives the angle down as well, which is pretty important for hunting from crossbow or bow. And I like to range out a couple of spots so I know, and I might even stake them, but like certainly at my mineral block and then beyond that, so I know my distance that I can take a max shot with a crossbow and ensure an ethical kill. So that's one of the things I like to do as well before. And then otherwise, it's basically a waiting game. Okay, you're waiting until your hunting season starts. Now, what do I take on my actual daily hunts? Just to go into my my bag here, my day bag. So I've got two different setups. I've got a day bag, and then I've got like a backup bag, and I'll talk about that one afterwards. But what do I put? And I go in basically when it's just, the sun is just coming up, and I come out when the sun is going down. So I'm from first light to last light. So what do I have in this little guy? And this is something I picked up like at a surplus store. I think it was like 35 bucks. I used to use it for duck hunting, but I found it much more practical for big game hunting. I've always got a pair of gloves in there. If it's really warm, it doesn't matter. I put a pair of gloves in there because you don't know how long you're going to be out in the woods. The belt doesn't usually go in there. I put it in there because obviously when I came back, I took my pants off. Hat, it doesn't matter. I could start out in the morning with a toque, and I might move over to a ball cap depending on how the sun is shining so that I can get more visibility. So I always have an extra hat in there, and it changes depending on which one I'm wearing. So I'm not going to keep this on the desk too long because it smells really bad like moose urine, so that's not a great smell. So then another toque. Now, I have a ton of these. You can buy these at any one of the stores for hand warmers, pocket warmers, whatever you want to call them. I usually carry a ton of those because the temperature can drop pretty significantly. I have some kind of moose lure. This one happens to be for buck. And then I have another kind of spray just to mask your own scent. This one happens to be for female. I always have a fixed blade knife. Get yourself a good fixed blade knife if you're doing big game hunting. Doesn't have to be a giant, like 12-inch blade. This one here's got like a 5.5-inch blade on it, but it's amazing. It's made in a company in Pictou, Nova Scotia. Any of you Canadian Army guys out there might recognize it because that's the one they used to issue. Not that I had this issued, but I'm just saying that they're great knives. So some kind of fixed blade knife, good strong spine to it. I always have a pack of emergency toilet paper because you never know. I always have a spare pair of socks because conditions can change and depending on where you're walking in, and you don't really want to get through a whole bunch of water with that. So inside of this bag, besides what I just pulled out of it, I have my daily carry stuff when I'm moose hunting. Get yourself a GPS, okay? Make sure the topographical maps are loaded on it. And I mean, there's all kinds of YouTube videos on how to do that. Make sure you know how it works. Carry that with you. Or carry a bunch of marking ribbon, because if something happens, you shoot a moose, it doesn't drop right there, and you end up pursuing that game a couple of 100 meters. Some of the woods that they'll go into are thick, and you want to be able to drop that GPS point wherever that moose drops to come back and retrieve it for a good ethical hunt. Some kind of collar is required, or I think it's required. I mean, if you want the moose to come to you, if you're doing that kind of hunting, then you need some kind of collar. There's all kinds of electronic calling devices out there. Check your regulations, because some provinces allow that, some don't. So this is allowed in Quebec, and this one is really cool because the guy who did this, he also put actual recordings on this. So it's operated by the handheld. You turn this on, you hang it wherever you want in the woods. I like that idea too, because you're not calling from 15 feet up in the air. You're down, you can put it down near your block, and that'll bring the moose, and the sound I think is better because it's a more natural sound. Moose are not 15 feet tall, although some of them seem that way when you see them close up. So you can choose, there's a ton of them loaded on this. Moose, deer, turkey is loaded. There's even crows, coyotes. So there's a bunch on there, and it's actually done with some of the live recordings are done with moose that were taken in Abitibi, which is close enough to where I hunt that maybe it'll give me that kind of edge. Anyway, very cool. It doesn't sound like a machine when it goes off. It sounds pretty clear. It sounds fairly realistic. So you want something like that with you. If you are a warm beverage drinker, and I certainly am, get yourself a good thermos. I picked this one up, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago. It was at a Tim Hortons, kind of an impulse buy, and I have not seen them since. But this thing is amazing. It keeps my coffee hot for hours and hours and hours. I can have a coffee actually the day after and it'll still be warm. So make sure you get yourself a good hot beverage storage device of your choosing. Or if you're not a hot beverage drinker, bring lots of water with you. I usually have a jug of water in here too. I did some emptying, but I always have like a couple of water things in there. Some kind of communication device you need, especially if you're hunting in a group. And where I hunt, we need 2 tags in order to take 1 moose. So I've got a partner that, I mean, if we both got moose coming to our line, I shoot, I need to be able to notify him, although he's close enough away he'd hear the rifle shot, but let's say I missed it, not likely, but I mean it could happen. I need to be able to communicate with him saying, hey, I just took a moose, it's time, come and get the gang, and now the work begins. So some kind of, and test them as well, where you're going to be hunting. Very important to test them where you're going to be hunting. Go to both your towers. If you have a lot of interference, you might not be able to get away with a communication like this. You might have to go to something with a little bit stronger, like an FM or something, or maybe there's certain areas where it might work. So test that for sure. Before I leave and walk onto the trail, I usually spray down my feet and anything else that I've been my legs, up to my legs. You don't have to soak yourself, but give it a little spray with this Dead Downwind or any kind of product that's similar to. Moose do not have very good eyesight, but they've got very good smell and a very good sense of smell and a very good sense of hearing as well. So that's kind of how they avoid predators. So you want to blend in. And that's why I have the moose lure, because most of my clothing smells like moose lure when I'm finished. So that's that basically. And I mean, I'm not going to talk about clothing so much. I believe you should have a windproof, waterproof coat. But I mean, if I'm walking a lot, I'm going to dress down because I don't want to sweat on the trail. So I'll usually pack some more clothes with me or unzip, make sure it's something that I can unzip. I'll have a waterproof, windproof. I don't like anything on my legs. That's just personal, probably because of my military background. I don't like the sound of the zhit, zhit, zhit when I'm walking. So I usually just wear normal cam pants and I deal with it when I get there. I'm usually a little bit wet walking through the brush, but it dries off pretty quick with your own body heat. So the wet legs doesn't bother me, but if my feet get soaked, I want that extra pair of socks. I don't like wet feet, I don't like cold hands, and I don't like a cold head either, which is why I have a lot of the Tukik. So basically pay attention on where you're going to be walking. Get yourself a good pair of comfortable boots that are going to suit you. That's probably one of the most important pieces of kit you can have. These are not great, but they're comfortable. They're not too warm, so if I'm walking, my feet are not going to sweat a bunch. And have a couple of different options. As I said, we had like 10 centimeters of rain, so I think it was close to 7 inches. It was pretty brutal. So you want a really good pair of rubber boots, and these ones I just picked them up this year. They're like Hunt Shields, Canadian Tire brand. They're actually really well done compared to the previous iterations of this. These ones here are comfortable. They're supposedly scent free, so they're not supposed to pick up any kind of scent that you might have on your body, but good tracks, as you can see. They're very lightweight, so you can actually hoof it through the brush with these on small jaunts. I wouldn't wear them for a very long time, but on small jaunts. Now I kind of want to talk about preparation before you go hunting, because I saw 2 instances of this when I was moose hunting. And I mean, you do everything right and you're praying for that chance that a moose is going to come out to you. You don't want to blow that chance. Okay, so making sure that your equipment is serviced and ready to go is like more important than anything else. And I'll give you, like I said, 2 examples. So there's one example of this older gentleman. He was out basically driving down the roads looking for a moose, and he's been doing it for the last 5-6 years. And he's not the most mobile person in the world, and that's why he hunts out of his vehicle, which is fine as long as you're not near a main road. You can, exit the vehicle, take your rifle, load it, and shoot the animal if it's within your range. So he did that. The moose didn't drop right away, and he wasn't able to pursue it. He didn't have the physical ability to pursue this moose. So he said he was well set up, had the rifle nice and anchored, and pulled the trigger, and basically shot the moose in the leg. So we said, well, when is the last time like you went to the range, are you sure you're zeroed? And he said, well, I shot it like 6 years ago. And I mean, I was like, that's the kind of hunter, a simple mistake like that, but it gives us a bad name. Your responsibility as a hunter is to make sure that you do so ethically. And if you cannot, or if you're not with anybody that is able to pursue a wounded animal into the woods to make sure that the suffering is not continued, then maybe it's time to hang up that rifle or to go to a guide service, because they will do everything for you basically. They'll just put you in the best location that'll work for you in order to secure an animal, if you still have that love of hunting. And I get it, I'm a hunter, I understand that. But if you can't, so this moose ended up with probably a messed up leg. wandering down looking for water because it was probably in shock, and that's one of the symptoms that people, when they go through, people and animals, when they go into shock, they're thirsty. So this animal decided that it had to go down and find a lake, and it was basically curled up by a lake, and it took 8 hours to find it. The animal was not dead. It's now past dark. They can't shoot it because it's illegal, so they wait all night for that animal to go shoot it. So that makes me extremely sad. I don't like to see an animal suffer at all. I'm a hunter, but I'm not a savage. So that's one instance. The other instance is, and this guy's a good friend of mine, he's a good hunter, gets a moose every year. He was set up, he had a moose come out, so he pulls up he hunts with a Browning BER and a 300 Win Mag, and he pulls up his Browning BER, and 100 meters away, click, cocks the action, round comes out, click, cocks the action again, click. Now he has to take the rounds that are on the ground, load them back into the magazine, reload, work the action back and forth, bang, finally gets one round off. And now he's feeling the pressure, maybe a little bit of that buck fever kind of thing going on, and does not get a clean shot on the animal, gets a trace of blood, not able to secure the animal, and when he comes back, he's like, well, I felt like wrapping the rifle around the tree. And I said, well, let me see it. And he said, oh, I'm undoing it. I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, I got to take it all apart and clean it. I said, what's the matter with it? And he goes, well, look at the inside. So I cock the action to the rear, I look inside, and I mean, all you could see was rust. This rifle had been so poorly maintained that the action wouldn't go all the way forward. So with the action not in breech, guess what? It's not going to fire properly. A semi-automatic, very critical that you maintain those firearms if you want them to work properly. And with the amount of rain that we had, I mean, even this year, he would have struggled. So make sure your equipment is ready so that when you do get that chance, if you get that chance, that you're much more successful. So anyway, I cleaned the firearm for him and it worked fine after that, but his wife ended up shooting the animal instead, or a different animal, I should say. Now, before you even go to the range and zero your rifle, check your equipment. This belongs to my wife's uncle, actually. And when we were zeroing it for the range, we found out that as you were moving the zoom from 3 to 9, and it's it's not a great scope, but they were good back in the day. The Bushnell, I don't think this is a Banner. I think it's even too old. This is probably about 40 years old. So we were going from 3 to 9, and we noticed that every once in a while, the crosshair would move. So the crosshair is moving on the inside of the scope. So that's not good. So this scope is going to be sent back to Bushnell, but he's got like buckhorn sights under a high-rise scope now. So we put the scope back on, and we got it zeroed as well as possible, and kept this. I took it apart and got the sights, or the at least the crosshairs, straight up and down where they should be. But anyway, make sure your equipment is functioning before you go on a hunt. Otherwise, what's the point? Oh, just some other things. Like these are kind of like bonus items. When you go to a certain age, you don't want a cold butt. You can pick these up at most hunting places. They are fantastic, but just be aware that anything you lug in, you're gonna have to lug back with you. So, I mean, if you have a hunting platform, then you can bring one of these out with you, and they're good. I mean, you can leave it there until you have to bring it back. Or if you're gonna walk a bunch through the woods and you wanna have a nice little spot to sit on, they're not very heavy, but certainly a nice little, especially if you got a bunch of rain, you put this down, you can sit on top of it, it gives you a dry spot. Now, I want to talk about, like, besides my daily stuff, I also have like a go bag, basically, that if somebody in our group shoots an animal, I'm like, I'll race back with my four-wheeler or whatever I'm on, and I'll get my go bag, which has the stuff basically for cleaning an animal. We have another one that's set up that's got like a Sawzall and stuff in it, but this one here just has a couple of things that I just wanted to say, like, this is probably the bare minimums. You want to bring that stuff with you. Cheesecloth, you definitely want to have that. You got to quarter the animal. A moose is a big animal. Unless you have like an open trail where you can load that thing up on the trailers, and I've seen those set up, you're probably going to end up quartering the animal out there. So you want to make sure you put some cheesecloth on it when you're transporting it so it doesn't get full of mud, bugs, or whatever else. Some kind of item for hacking out the thick brush, whether it be a machete, an axe. Most people have an axe in their moose bag because back in the day that was the popular way of making the quarters. But nowadays, like we have a Sawzall in ours. So, okay, so yeah, for sure you want to have something to chop down some brush, whatever, cut cord. You got that fixed blade as well. Make sure you have a ton of cord and flashlights in your go bag, as well as I usually like to have something like this because it gives me a choice of what I'm going to use in the field butchering. So there's some handy stuff in there, as well as a sharpening stone. I did a video on this. If you haven't seen that video, go check that out. It's good stuff. And then I actually have my like knife that I use for gutting the animal. This one here is one of those like Havalon style that has the replaceable, this is outdoor edge I think. Yeah, it's outdoor edge. So it's got the replaceable blades on it, very, very, very sharp, and it comes with I think 6 others in the package. The nice thing about this as well is that you have that, so you know it's not very difficult to get rid of the blade. All you have to do is kind of push on there and retract the blade. The nice thing about this one as well is that it has that gut hook, basically. So it makes it a lot easier getting through the skin of the animal. That's really, really, really sharp and gets through the skin of the animal, and with a moose, hide is very tough. So that's about my kit. The only thing I was going to say is, you know, this is not exhaustive. This is kind of what I do, and it's back and forth. You know, it's just me lugging it in. I could certainly add to it. I could certainly subtract to it. I know I talked about a GPS. You should also know the area that you're hunting. That's kind of the preparation. You want to scout around there, find out, you know, not just checking for tracks and stuff, but see if there's any major trails that are close to that. Because a moose is going to find, typically what happens, unless you kill it right there in the spot, a moose is going to find some of the thickest, deepest branches, bush, because it's trying to get away from the predator, you, and lay down and hide and see if it can heal. Now, what happened to me 2 years ago, I shot, it was like on the side of a hill, and I was sitting up at the top, and you just kind of walk out of the thick brush right behind me. Lucky, right? So he dropped almost right there where I shot him, which is fine, but he rolled in a weird spot and his back was kind of down in this gully. So there was me and one other person trying to roll this 1,000-pound animal over so we could get to gutting, and it wasn't the easiest thing in the world. So that's why I say make sure you have lots of cord, make sure you have flashlights, make sure you have all that stuff. This kind of kit, very good. One of those knives are amazing, never need sharpening, you don't have to worry about doing that stuff in the dark. Make sure you've got your cheesecloth, and you know, make sure you bring a little bit of food as well. I always have a few snacks, even if you think you're only going to be out there for a little while and you had a big lunch, breakfast, whatever, you're always going to be out there longer than what you think. The last moose that I shot was 10 minutes before basically sundown, and like I said, he just kind of came out of the woods. I shot him and we were there till 10:30 at night. So didn't eat very much. There was a lot of celebrating at the end of that, I'll tell you, but didn't eat very much. That's about it, guys. I hope this helps some of you guys out that are thinking about getting into big game hunting, or maybe that are looking for. These are like, and all these things are not very expensive. You can get very basic cameras that are going to do the job. Like, these are no video, there's no audio or anything, but they take the picture, and that's all you kind of really want to see, is if, you know, animals are passing where you're set up. And like I said, more than one location is certainly good. They work at night as well. So it's all good. You show up in the morning and you say, well, look at that, I got fresh tracks. That's awesome. Did that happen after I left or just before I got there? That's kind of stuff you want to know. Or if you're out of that spot because you decided to, you know, push through the woods a little bit and see if they're walking through there, when you come back in 2 days, you got fresh tracks or somewhat fresh tracks, like you want to see where that happened, when that happened, where they came out of the woods and where they went in. So all those things really helps out. I love the whole experience of hunting, even if I don't get an animal. I love being out in the woods. That's my therapy. I sit there and I have my coffee and I watch as the sun kind of comes up, and I love that part of it. Let me know, guys, if I'm missing anything. Let me know in the comments down below if you have something that you will no doubt not leave behind when you go on a hunting trip. What is it? If you've got some other stuff, I don't care if it's deer, caribou, whatever. If it's handy and it gets out there, and I want people to know that, hey, good stuff. There's some other hunting stuff that you can find out there. Go ahead and click that like, subscribe, please. You're helping me out. We're over 700 now, which is really cool. I didn't really see it growing like this, and I think it's great. It's great for me, and it's kind of cool because, like I said, my kids are helping me out, and they can kind of see, put a little bit of work into something, and it helps out. So, and you can see the benefits of it. So that's it, guys. Hopefully next year, right? Isn't that what we say as hunters? We'll get them next year, so we'll get them next year. Take care. Have a great weekend. Have a successful hunting trip if you're planning one, and we'll talk to you in the next video.